Hi everyone, Eric Olsen from Helps Law Group talking to you today on July 8th, 2025, July 7th, 2025. I guess my mom's birthday. She passed away many, many years ago when I was young. But I'd like to welcome you to our YouTube channel. Um, we do this Monday through Thursday, and the goal of Helps, our number one mission is to protect seniors from debt collector harassment. And our second mission is to educate seniors how they can maintain their financial independence. I trust you can hear me okay. Kind of let me in the chat if you can. There we go. There we go. Good to have you here. Okay. So, a number one thing we want to tell seniors is this: that your Social Security, your pension, your disability, your VA benefits, virtually any form of retirement is protected by federal and state laws. It can't be taken from you. And then there was a federal law passed in 2012 that provides if a federal benefit such as Social Security is deposited into a bank account, that particular bank account is automatically protected by your bank from garnishment, regardless of what other funds are in there or where they came from. So if someone were to sue you and get a judgment and you had one bank account in which Social Security was deposited, your bank will protect that without you having to do anything. I talked to someone today from Maryland. I'm going to talk about them in a few minutes. They went to an attorney who charged them $200 to supposedly protect that bank account to which their Social Security went. They didn't need to do that because your bank protects that money automatically without you doing anything. I suspect that attorney didn't understand that rule that was put in effect in 2012. I've always said, I still say it to this day, maybe 1 out of 1,000 attorneys understand that rule. Okay. It's just a lot of people don't know about it. Okay. And I've yet to meet a bank manager that understands the rule. But the department of the bank that deals with garnishments, they do understand the rule. Okay. So they're going to protect that money. Okay. So you can put your questions in the chat feature. I'll deal with them then. I'll deal with them there. Good to have you here. On Thursday, we usually end about 15 minutes early. So we're going to go for 45 minutes here. So welcome. Glad to have you here. So Marty says, so you're saying that consolidated loan and my credit card debt, solar panels, I don't have to worry because I'm Social Security. They can't do anything to me. No, they're not. They can't. If they were to sue you and get a judgment, they can't take your Social Security. If you deposit in your bank account is protected up to twice the amount what you get in federal benefits. Now, if you had more than that in there, it's still protected, just not automatically. You have to file paperwork to get it released. And we help people do that when that happens. But most of the time, our clients say, I never have more than twice the amount of my Social Security or my federal benefit in my account at any one time. And if that's the case, nothing to worry about. Okay? So Ms. H asks, when a senior is still working, can a debt collector contact their employer or neighbors to get information on them? Isn't that illegal to do that or not? Well, it doesn't happen very rarely. They normally want to call an employer, and I don't know how they even find out where you work. And what about your neighbor? I suppose it's theoretically possible, but it's not a practical issue. I don't see that happening. And I know filed like 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies, and that was not an issue that came up. Okay, so I wouldn't worry about that kind of thing. Now, remember, nothing they can do to you. If your income is Social Security or pension, it's protected. Even if they get a job, they can't take it from you. You're going to be fine, and you don't need to be worried about being embarrassed by them doing anything. Okay. So Grammy says, I need advice. I haven't been served yet. Judge signed a writ of garnishment for my federal disability pension annuity. Anything over $500, should I reduce the account to $500 from $1,000? My account seems. So if you get a disability pension. It's from the federal government. So anything from the federal government you get in form of retirement is protected automatically up to twice the amount that you get each month. So as you keep the balance less than that, it's protected automatically without you having to do anything. So if you got $1,000 a month, that means $2,000 in your account is protected, even if there's money in there that came from another source. And if that doesn't completely answer your question, Grandmammy, give us a call. The number's down below, okay? And one of the attorneys or paralegals will go over that with you, okay? When I talk today, if I bring up an issue that I don't touch on or you need more information on it, don't hesitate to call us. That's what we're here for, okay? Carrie asks, or Ken asks, if I let my car get repoed, can the creditor or the IRS come after me? Thanks. Well, this is America. You can sue anyone for anything. So if you let the car go back, what's going to happen is they're eventually going to repossess it. Then they're going to sell it, okay? Usually at an auction. And they usually sell it for less than what you owed. And then you're going to get a letter in the mail, eventually called a notice of deficiency from the lender saying, what's the balance you owe? Now, if your income is Social Security, pension, like, they can't really do anything. They can't collect from you. They theoretically could sue you. If you're a helps client and you got this debt, you turn it into us. We'll send a cease and desist letter out to that lender. Let him know that your income is protected and they're not going to bother you. But let's say they did sue you and got a judgment. They can't collect from you. If your income is Social Security or pension, it's protected. Now, are you going to owe anything to the IRS? Not really. You might be thinking that, let's see here, that if you owe a debt and you don't pay it, you could have to pay IRS taxes. That is extremely unlikely. And if you're a modest or lower income seniors, it's just not going to happen. It's called a 1099-C. A creditor could turn into the IRS. This says that you didn't pay a debt, therefore that should be income to you. But if your only income is Social Security and a little bit of other income, then you're not even required to file tax returns. IRS isn't going to follow up on it. So there shouldn't be a problem, Ken. You can talk to us. We've got videos that talk about that, about 1099-Cs and why the IRS isn't going to be able to collect from you. And if you did have a problem, if you did owe the IRS money, we'll talk about this later. You can get on what's called currently not collectible status, and where they're not going to have to pay it. We'll talk about that a little bit more later today, I think. I've got some questions on that. Once someone applies for SSI, how long does it take for approval or denial? Well, I'm not really a good expert on that, but it could be a while. The stronger the case, if it's SSI, it's usually fairly fast, okay? But you have to, it's based on your disability. The more disabled you are, the faster it goes through. Yeah, so Ken, if you're on Social Security only, nothing to worry about. Even if you got a form, a 1099-C form saying that, you're not required to file taxes, you don't need to worry about it. There's not going to be a problem. Okay? Okay. So I got things to talk about here. I enrolled someone this morning earlier today from Maryland, a husband and wife, and the husband had really difficulty hearing me. He couldn't hear me. So the wife had to relay everything. She was pretty sharp. And she told me she was watching Phelps videos at 3 a.m. today. Okay. Oof. And if I remember right, the husband got income of about $1,700 in Social Security. The wife had $1,200 in Social Security and a small pension of maybe $500. They had $30,000 in debt. They had been with a debt management company earlier, years ago, for several years, course, they were never told their income was protected. And one of the creditors that they turned into the debt management company had decided to sue them and had a judgment against them. And it was a pretty aggressive creditor. And the husband, he was really worried about that because they were harassing them in different ways. And they'd sent him a form, interrogatory, where they're supposed to fill out and answer some questions. They're buying a home. They owe $140,000 on the first mortgage, and then they have a grant where they owe about $50,000 on the grant. So in total, they probably owe around 190 or thereabouts on the home, and the home is worth about 300. Now they live in Maryland. The homestead exemption in Maryland is like a little bit less than $28,000. They were buying a car. There wasn't a lot of equity in the car or any at all. But they were worried about these debts, and especially this judgment and this interrogatory form that they were supposed to fill out. I told them there's really nothing to worry about. They enrolled in HELPS, but I had to emphasize, I said, if you got that form that you got from this attorney that you're supposed to answer questions after the judgment, call us, get us a copy of it. We'll go over it with you, help you fill it out. We don't give legal advice, but we give legal information. There's nothing on that form that is going to get you into trouble. They're not going to take your home. They're not going to take your car. They only had one bank account. And when you added up their Social Securities together, the two of them, it was about, it was almost like 2,500. So that meant about 5,000 in their bank account was protected automatically. And I emphasize to them, like we do to all our clients, if they ever have a question or concern, they can always call us, no matter how often. He was really worried about this judgment, and I told him he didn't need to worry. Okay. And then I told the wife to make sure he can hear YouTube videos. I show him our YouTube videos. We've got hundreds of them, and we got a lot of them on senior living, and he can listen to those to his heart's content. And he'll finally realize why he doesn't have anything to worry about. Okay? And I say that to anyone here that's listening to me. If you got a question, look at our videos or call us on the phone. Okay. Can you speak a little bit about a bill that went to collections and it was paid off with the first stimulus check, and they claim it wasn't? They're not original creditors, they're collectors. Well, okay. I talk about this sometimes. Sometimes you can always contest a debt. If someone were to sue you and you don't owe it, you can contest it. Okay. So on this one, if they were say you owe the money, say, hey, I paid it, go ahead and sue me. And if they ever did sue you, you could contest it if you wanted to. You don't have to contest it. If your income, Social Security, and your pension, and it's difficult for you to contest it for whatever reason, you can just ignore it and they get a judgment they can't collect from you. Okay. We don't represent people in court, so we can't contest it. I mean, you could, if you wanted to, talk to them, explain how it was paid, maybe get them some information. You don't have to go to that if you don't want to. You don't have to do that, because what's the worst thing they can do? So you get a judgment they can't collect from you. So you don't need to worry. Okay. No, I don't mean to offend anyone if I don't get a question answered. Now I appreciate you, Ms. H, asking these questions. You fill in the gap, but sometimes there's a lot of other questions coming in. You ask great questions. Okay, Grammy says, I live on $484 a month disability from Postal Service. $300 a month going to pay a credit card. I was trying to build to a $1,500 balance to defer $12 monthly fees behind on utilities, now garnishment. Well, okay. You don't need to pay $300 a month on the credit card. Okay. Now, if you get a real small amount in Social Security, you don't necessarily need to have a bank account either. Social Security has a service they call Direct Express Card, where you can have your Social Security downloaded on a debit card. Okay. And it's free. And so you just use it like a debit card. When the money's gone, it's gone. Okay. And some people that, for whatever reason, don't want to be with a bank, don't like a bank, if they use that Direct Express card, then and no one can garnish it. And no, Grandma, no one should be able to garnish you. Twice the amount of your federal benefit on your account is protected automatically. If you happen to have more than that in there, it is true the excess could be held up. Then you have to file a challenge to garnishment or claim of exemption to get that released. We help our clients do that when that happens. It's not very often that happens. That's right. We want Ms. H to ask all these questions because they're always good. Okay. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. A minute here. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. My computer it froze up here. I'm getting it unthawed here really quick. Well, let me see if I can get a question while I'm unthawing it. Um, how do you deal with questions when they only call you but never send you a letter? Well, I imagine if you talked to them and you found out who they were and got, if you're a member of HELPS, you got two ways to deal with it. When you say, I'm represented by HELPS, give her name and number and hang up the phone, they're probably not going to bother you anymore. HELPS law firm. But if they were to call you, you can say, uh, uh, what's your address and give me your, what's the account number? Okay. And then you get that to HELPS, the name, the address, and the account number, and we'll send them a cease and desist letter. Okay. Now, if they're not cooperating, it could be a scammer that's calling you too. Okay. You don't have to talk to them if you don't want to. You don't have to take their call. You could block their call. Okay. So Kat says, regarding judgments, would you see that on your credit report and how long after your cease and desist letter? No, since about 2018, judgments are no longer reported on credit reports, okay, or lawsuits. I've explained this before. What I think what happened was the credit bureaus were being sued. Someone would have a loan that was pending to buy a house, maybe, and then the credit report would show that there was a judgment when they had paid that judgment off and it hadn't been taken off the credit report. And so it delayed them getting the loan. So they were mad at the credit reporter, Equifax or TransUnion, whoever it was. So they sued them. And so the credit reporting agencies were tired of getting sued. So what they did, made a decision that we're not going to report lawsuits anymore or judgments. We're only going to report what people tell us, like if someone's behind. Okay. And so they don't even report tax liens, because if you owe taxes and there's a tax lien, you pay it off. It might be, it takes a while sometimes for the IRS to remove the lien, or they don't get the information. So they decided to avoid being sued. They're only going to report what missed payments that creditors report to them. Okay. So Grandma says, how can judges get away with signing writs or garnishments without the person being notified first and attempts were being made to satisfy a judgment? Okay, first off, a judge really doesn't have anything to do with a writ of garnishment. Okay, they don't do that. If someone sues you, and all a judge does is he makes a decision that you owe the money. He's not in charge of collecting the money from you. Okay, that's the attorney who got the judgment, and the attorney who got the judgment can file a form and serve it on the bank or on your employer if they happen to know who it is, that a writ of garnishment. And then, like I explained, if your bank account is less than twice the amount of your federal benefit, it's protected automatically. So the judge really doesn't have anything to do with it. Now, an attorney can try to garnish you, and occasionally one of our clients, there's a garnishment attempt, but like I said, the bank's going to protect twice the amount. So you're not going to need to worry about it. Okay. Here we go. This person wrote in, they said, I can't afford a lawyer. What can I do? Well, if you listen to what you don't need a lawyer if you owe the debt and you're a senior getting Social Security, you're not going to, and your income's protected, you're not going to need an attorney. Okay. If you do nothing and they get a judgment, that's it. They can't collect from you. Now, helps. What we do is when we represent seniors so that the creditors under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, if you're represented by an attorney, collectors can't call or send you demand letters anymore. And we don't turn anyone away. The most a person would pay helps would be $40 for 24 months, then $20 for 24 months, free thereafter. Or it could be $30 for 24 months, $15 for 24 months, free thereafter, or $20 for 24 months, $10 for 24 months, free thereafter, based on your household income. But whatever it is, we make it work. We don't turn anyone away. And so what we do is we represent you so that the creditor can't be harassing you anymore. If you've been sued, we send a letter to the attorney who sued you, let him know you're not going to pay the debt. We understand they're going to get a judgment, but they can't collect from you. And you can always call and talk to us. Okay? Now, I probably did 30 or 40,000 bankruptcies before I started HELPS in 2012. And the reason I started HELPS was because seniors would come to me and they would owe debt and they couldn't afford a bankruptcy and they really didn't need to file bankruptcy. But I knew when I sent them home that creditors could call them and make their lives miserable. And so under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, if you're represented by an attorney to get collector communication, they got to leave you alone. So that's why HELPS was started. And it also was started so that seniors would always have someone to call if they had a question or if they were worried or scared. So this person contacts us from Texas. I've been sued by LVNV funding for a credit card debt from Capital One Bank in the amount of about $1,600. I'm 79 years old. I live in Texas. My income comes from Social Security and General Board pensions of something. Please let me know if you can help me and what are your requirements to do so. Thank you. Well, absolutely, we can help this person. He doesn't need to worry about being sued. He's 79 years old. His income is Social Security and a pension. It's protected. We're going to explain to him that, if they get a judgment, twice the amount of whatever he gets in Social Security is protected automatically, even if some of the money came from another source like the pension. And we can write a letter to the attorney that sued him and let him know why that he can't pay it. He's not going to pay it. Now, different states have different rules on judgments, and Texas has a form where they can appoint a court-appointed receiver, and sometimes they do that. They use that state law to try to intimidate someone, and a senior gets that, and they think, "Oh no, I have to turn over all my property," and they end up calling a creditor and making arrangements to make payments. Whereas in the fine print on the letter, it explains they can only collect what the law allows. And in Texas, they have, so it's just done to shake people down. So, there's other states that have similar things, not too many of them, but if you ever get another form regarding a judgment and trying to collect, you get a hold of us, you talk to us, we'll talk you through it, why you don't need to worry about it, what can be done. Can your creditors take your car if it's paid off? Well, every state, this was a question that someone put on it was on one of our videos. It was on a comment, and I said, this was my answer. Almost every state has exemption laws that protect a certain amount of equity, for example, equity in the car. Equity is the value of the car less what is owed on the car, if anything. However, it is not the practice of consumer judgment creditors to ever go after a person's car, even if they had equity in the car over the state exemption. And you can always call helps to go over your situation. So let's say you had a car that was worth $10,000 and it was free and clear. And the exemption in the state was $3,000. So you'd have $7,000 equity in the car over and above the exemption. And someone sues you and gets a judgment. Does that mean they're going to come out and repossess the car? No, they don't do that. Now, is it legal for them to try to do that? There is a complicated procedure for them to try to do it, but they just simply don't do it because it could be stopped and it's expensive for them, and it's just not their practice to do that. Now, why do I know? Well, I'm 74, been an attorney for 46 years, helped since 2012, and before that, 30 to 40,000 bankruptcies. So I know what the creditors do and what they don't do. So no, you're not going to worry. You don't need to worry about losing that car. Okay. So I did a video one time and talked about taxes, and this person said that they helped people file tax returns for like 10 or 15 years. And they went on a rant how you needed to file your taxes. You had to file your taxes. And I responded to that comment they made, and I'll read you what I said. I haven't talked about taxes yet today. I said, obviously, if we are able, we should be paying our taxes. That, however, is not always possible. Yeah, sometimes you might owe some taxes and you just don't have the money to pay it. The IRS has a status called currently not collectible, available to persons who are unable to pay their taxes primarily because of lower incomes. Also, credit card companies do not, this person said that credit card companies have insurance that pays them if they don't pay a debt, which isn't true. They don't. And he says, we're talking about modest and lower income seniors here who owe taxes. So, if you owe taxes to the IRS, you don't need to pay it. And then I went on to say, I said, the IRS will not take your home, car, or, quote, anything of value to resolve your tax debt. That's what this person said in the comment. He said the IRS would do that. Moderate and lower income seniors are not in the tax bracket of Willie Nelson. They gave an example of Willie Nelson that they came in and took his act. Well, Willie Nelson had many millions of dollars and he owed millions in taxes. He's not in the category that you're in, that we're in, as seniors. Typically, the IRS would only offset 15% of Social Security for past due taxes owed. And even that is not common. A senior couple with an income of around $3,500 per month, or a single senior with income of around $2,500 per month or less, can easily qualify for currently not collectible status and not have to pay the taxes. A set off of 15% will not occur until the IRS sends a notice of intent to do so after 60 days. That provides ample time to sign up for currently not collectible status. Okay? So, and then if you owe taxes to the state is just like a credit card debt. They can't touch your Social Security or your pension, and your bank account is protected. They can't take your money. So you don't need to worry about state taxes. Here's another one from a couple from Washington, and they say, "We are in dire need of help. We are greatly in debt. My husband seems to have dementia, and I have a rare incurable disease called," if you're listening to me and you're dire need of help, please call us. The number's down below. We'll talk to you. You'll be glad you did. We're really nice when you call. I mean, our paralegals can answer. They're going to ask you some questions. They're going to answer your questions and explain what we do. And you can call 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And if you decide you need our help, we can enroll you. We can do it on the spot. So if you're getting creditors, when we enroll someone, when we hang up the phone, if a creditor were to call you the next minute, you tell them to call helps. You give them our name and number. And they call us. You're going to be in our system as being our client. So you don't need to worry. Okay. Okay. Katrina says, "I never received a call from creditors since the day I joined Help. They just sued me." Yeah. Why they sue, I don't know. We send them a letter telling them your income's protected. They can still sue. I think they count on seniors sometimes not knowing what their rights are. Okay. And so they sue seniors sometimes hoping that they'll call them. The senior would call them and they don't have to tell them their income's protected. Okay. So, see, Ken, after the presentation the other day with Ken, I am confused about how a person's judgments affect the application and result of applying for a reverse mortgage. Thank you. Well, you can call and talk to one of the attorneys that helps, but I'll try to explain real quick. If you have poor credit, okay, then if you go to get a reverse mortgage, they might require that there be a set aside for property taxes. In other words, instead of letting you have access to that money, they're going to hold that money and pay the property taxes for you. Okay. Now, if there's a judgment and you apply for a reverse mortgage, that judgment lien would need to be removed or need to be paid. So you can call and talk to me if you need to, and I'll go over it with you. Yeah. So this person called us. They say, I'm 81. I'm 81 years old and enrolled and helps. My only income is Social Security and 2 smaller retirement incomes. I owe money to a line of credit through my bank and with varying interest rates. Payments to this debt also vary, and I will never live long enough to pay it off. I'm able to make payments on my home, and the house has some equity. If my income is protected and I stop making payments to the bank, will the bank be able to attach to the equity on my home? Will the bank be able to harm my credit rating? Well, they could, yeah, if you don't make the payment on a loan, they can harm your credit rating. Will they be able to attach to your equity in the home? No. If you have a loan with a bank and where you're buying your home, that loan is completely separate if you have another loan with a bank. Okay. But now you says, I owe money to a line of credit through my bank. Now, if it's a line, it could be what's called a home equity line of credit. That's called HELOC. If it's a home equity line of credit, that is a mortgage, which is kind of like, well, it's a mortgage, uh, like a second mortgage, and it is tied to the equity in your home. So if you don't pay it, um, will a HELOC foreclose if you don't pay it? Will a home equity line of credit foreclose? Well, theoretically they could, but they'd have to pay off the money you owe on the first mortgage. So it's very uncommon for a second mortgage to foreclose. It can happen, but we just don't see it happening hardly ever. And if it were to happen, it could be stopped. There's things could be stopped. Okay. Sometimes I have a time with this laptop here. Okay, this person calls us from Utah. Says, I'll get right to the point, but then it's a big old long email. Okay, I received a summons uh, in June, read it and put it in the drawer, but forgot about it. And then he explains why he forgot about it. He had some difficult issues that he has dealt with in the past that caused him to forget about it. Um, Now he says the creditors are coming after me. Let me see what it says here. Because of lack of funds, I lost my home, and he went homeless in the past. Couldn't get a job because of his medical condition. And then he says the bill in question is past the statute of limitations, although I did start paying on it a few months ago. Um, the statute of limitations, he said, was May 18th. And he says, well, because they've sued me, they're or trying to collect on it, they're violating the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. No, they're not. Well, the problem is, if you got a statute of limitation, let's say the statute of limitations means 5 years from the date you either incurred the bill or when you last made a payment. So if you make a payment a month before the statute of limitations is supposed to run, then the statute of limitations starts over again. They got another 5 years to try to collect from you. And he was contacting us, wanting us to, since they have violated the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, I may want to go after them with a lawsuit. And he talked about, but you can't. When you made the extra payments, you started up the statute of limitations again. But once again, it doesn't really matter, does it? If your income was Social Security and a pension, even if they were to try to come after you, they can't do anything. This person writes in, they says, I will be joining Help Soon instead of a debt consolidation program. Yeah, if you're on debt management or debt settlement, you're making payments to them. The question I'd ask you is when you enrolled with them, if you're getting Social Security or a pension, did they tell you that your income was protected and no one could take it? And you didn't need, if they didn't tell you that, they weren't giving you the complete truth. If they would have told you that, you would have realized that you didn't need their help. So, we do a constant battle with these companies failing to tell seniors the complete truth. Okay. He goes on to say, looks like helps is a much better option. I kind of stopped working 7 years ago to help mom and dad and moved in with them. So now this burden is on me to make sure things get paid. This will help immensely that we don't have to pay the debt that I owe. Yeah, of course it would help immensely. You'll have that money available for your needs. Okay, can creditors force me to sell my home or place a lien against it? I think I've already talked about that today. A judgment creditor, they can become a lien on the home. They're not going to force you to sell it. Not their, they don't do it that way. If you own the home with the spouse and the judgment was just against you, then if you pass away, the home automatically goes to your spouse. The judgment lien drops off. There's a lot of reasons why a judgment lien may not be impacted. And then some states that you can get a judgment lien removed no matter what the home is worth. It just depends on the state, but losing the home is not a factor. So this guy writes in, and I could almost memorize it, what he said here. I'm 76 years old with $35,000 in credit card debt. I own my home, own a car. I've never missed a credit card payment. Is there hope for me? Yeah, you bet there is. I mean, if you're 76 and you're living off Social Security or a pension, and you just have too much debt you can't deal with, in this case, it's 35,000. You can stop paying it. Your role in helps will send a letter to these creditors you owe money to. They can't collect from you. Even if you get sued, you're not going to have to go to court. You do not need to worry. Next person calls and they say, do I have to call the credit card companies to tell them I can't pay? No, you don't have to do that. No. When you enroll in helps, you give us the credit card companies you don't want to pay. We send them a cease and desist letter. Now, even if it's an original creditor, we send them that. You don't have to call them. If you call them to tell them that you couldn't pay, you're just going to frustrate them and you're going to frustrate you. The person you call doesn't care if you can't pay or not. Well, their only job is to try to collect from you. So if you call them and say, I can't pay out of the blue, they're not going to know what to do. And it's going to be frustrating for you. Salt Lake says, best kept secret senior Social Security is protected. I had no idea till helps. It's true. Yeah. Steph asks, if I can't work due to medical and mental reasons, but not on Social Security disability and only have spouse's retirement Social Security check via disability, is that protected? Absolutely. Yeah, you're not working, you don't have any income. Your spouse's Social Security is protected and the VA disability is protected. VA disability is a federal benefit. So if that money goes into a checking account, for example, the total between Social Security and VA disability, let's say Social Security is 1,000, VA disability is 1,000, that's 2,000, 4,000 in the bank account is protected, no matter whose name is on the bank account. So if they were to sue you and get a judgment and they happen to garnish the bank account, the bank looks at your account, they determine where the money came from. They don't care whose name is on the account. All they care about is where the money came from. Came from a federal source, it's automatically protected twice the amount. Okay. You can always call us and go. We can always call and we can go over this. When bill collectors called my ex-wife's family, I signed up with helps. They didn't that intentionally to try and embarrass me. I'm not playing those games. Yeah, technically they can't. If they call someone, they can only do it once, and they can't tell them that they're a debt collector. And if they were, they could be sued under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Okay. So I said earlier that we were only going to do 45 minutes today, and I'm going to stick to my word. It's been 45 minutes. I want to thank you for your participation. So this is Thursday. Another week's gone by. If you have any questions, call us at the number down below, okay? 855-435-7787. We'll be glad to go over and answer your questions. Don't want you to worry. I'll be back with you Monday through Thursday next week. And hopefully get one of my paralegals on maybe Monday to talk with them about what we do. So have a great weekend. Appreciate all your good questions. Don't worry. Call us. You're going to be fine. God bless. Bye.